Hello there all you Cert 3s. I'm here at Glendale TAFE. Just over that way a little bit you'll find Cockle Creek. I think I'll get over there now. It's just a hop, skip and a jump away. Whoa, here I am up above beautiful Cockle Creek. Whoa! It's a bit windy today. I'm just going to swing around this way. Whoa! Yep, just down here. I'm just going to go and land down here and then I'll start talking to you. Whoa! Oh! Bit of a rough landing. Looks like I've landed in a different time. Looks like I'm here sometime before the 1970s. I'm getting used to it now. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around. Oh, wow. Finally got here. What all this time travelling through times, I think I can make that relevant to what I'm going to talk about. So in terms of the diversity assessment, working with diverse people, I guess that idea of reflecting on where we've come from, the things that have impacted on who we are, forming our views. Remember that little activity we did at the start of when we introduced this unit, Jim and I, we got you to draw stuff, so the things that were important to you, flags to represent culture, foods, family, music, I think, media, things like that were mentioned. I guess going to reflect on what it was like for me in particular in the 70s and 80s, and I guess a big influence is media. So have a look at what was on television back then.
Tab Cola has a beautiful taste, so good for beautiful people. Tab Cola, beautiful to you and me, 'cause every can has less than 2 calories.
Look out, mouse. Watch out first. This mellow yellow's as good as the first.
When things are kinda lazy, you can make them crazy, baby, move it. Ice coffee, move. Banana, move it, baby. Move your body to it. Move it, put my fantasies beside me. Send a shower of dreams to soothe me. Give me something wild to marry. It's bronze and dark like a Bondi suntan. With the let's come in.
It makes a baked potato a real congratulator, and just a dash can make the mash a smash. Gee, you ought to be congratulated. You ought to be congratulated.
Bath cleaner, floor cleaner, stainless steel.
Are we cleaning the house?
Babette.
Or opening a supermarket? Flash cleans up the lot.
You gotta work it hard to be a solo man. You're gonna take the lead and make the others follow. You gotta keep in shape to be a solo man.
Like rippling liquid gold. Just shake hands, shake hands, shake hands with a cocoa baby. Shake hands, shake hands, shake hands with a cocoa baby.
Don't know if that works. Jim, how you going?
Yeah, good, how are you?
Yeah, good. Enjoying the serenity?
Beautiful, yeah. Good name of this lake.
Given much thought to ads from the 70s or 80s lately?
Wow, they're amazing. I can sort of, doesn't seem that long ago. But, the old Solo Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just went back to have a look, and I was actually a little bit surprised because I guess living in that moment, you don't really think about it. But going back, certainly for the soft drinks, I guess how much every soft drink ad was about, sex selling in a sense, particularly the portrayal of the female body.
Absolutely, yeah. It's it's like that idea of the perfect image.
Definitely.
And I'm always curious. Like I think I'm curious to know. Like, has it really changed that much? Thinking maybe things aren't that different nowadays. That there's still sort of this certain image.
Yeah. I guess my initial thought was, oh, maybe it is different today. It's not as blatant or in your face, but then I started thinking about, if I look at the glossy mags, for example, if I go to Coles, there's still a big focus on, you know, perfect bodies, male and female. Doesn't matter what the magazine is. Yeah.
I think for guys particularly now, there's much more about being that macho fella.
Yeah, so the solo man might have started it all, but...
From solo man to norm back to solo man.
Certainly some of those eating disorders type things, I would imagine, I'll have to check this out, but you know, from the 70s and 80s, and they continue to be there and still a big issue. So
I think that with the 70s and 80s, I don't know if it's still now, but I know growing up myself, you weren't exposed to a lot of diversity. I think nowadays maybe there is a bit more diversity because people have got the ability to tell their story or to share stuff via social media, particularly. It's so accessible. But I still think, even with all that diversity and those different stories, there's still this, I think there is still this mainstream or this particular image that the majority of people kind of aspire to a bit.
That dominant way of, I guess, shaping
and seeing the world, you know,
yeah.
and I think that's still true. I think
so. Even though it's different with social media, and I'm not an expert, and I'm sure some of you guys are, but you mentioned Instagram, and I've got a daughter, and there is a pressure, I think, for her to look good.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
Instagram. So, how would I say it's different, but perhaps similar or even the same.
Same but different, as they say in Asia.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the challenge for everyone here with doing this assessment that we're doing, this is very much when you're coming to do the reflection. You've asked to sort of consider in your reflection the views of broader community. So broader community, let's call it mainstream community, and I think all those ads from the 70s and the 80s and a lot of the stuff we still see on Instagram now, today in 2020, that's what they kind of mean by mainstream, broader community. So is there still that kind of dominant view, and how those views somehow different or perhaps consistent with the group that you guys are going to be researching and presenting on? You know, whether it be disabilities, is somehow disabilities now, the image of disabilities in 2020, does society generally see it as being, you know, people with disabilities as being more, people are more accepting of them, celebrating more their abilities? Are we doing that, or are we still...
I guess what word that comes to mind from those ads from the 70s, 80s, it's a whitewashed view of the world. So, you know, everyone was very white, in a sense.
White and almost perfect.
Almost perfect.
Nothing wrong with them.
Totally perfect. There was certainly no disability or an Aboriginal person or Torres Strait Islander person. I don't think was anywhere to be seen or mentioned as examples of that whitewashed view of the world.
And I think that's where maybe 2020 mainstream or broader media is a bit different. We're hearing different stories, but I think that's because, take with Aboriginal people themselves, they've got access to creating those stories and control over telling those stories now, much more. But I'm curious to think whether even those stories that they're telling are non-Indigenous people listening to them. Are they becoming more aware, for instance, of some of the challenges that Indigenous people face? Or is it still something that's just like NITV? Who watches NITV? Do you spend time watching NITV? Because that's where a lot of Indigenous stories or Aboriginal stories within Australia live.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's certainly a change in that sense. So there's more diversity out there. Are people engaging with it? Are you engaging and looking into that from that diverse group, other diverse groups' perspective?
Perspective's an interesting one, because I know we've talked a bit about the idea that you know, we all have a particular way of looking at the world that's been shaped by our own upbringing. And it's funny because I grew up, those ads from the 70s, I was going into my teenage years. So I was shaped by them and my view of the world. You know, you can't deny that. But I don't think it was until I was about 23 and ended up going to uni that someone put in front of me a different view of the world and challenged me. And I went, wow, I never thought of that before. It doesn't mean that I forget my own values and beliefs and how I was brought up. They're really important to me, but it's good to be challenged to see the world differently, because I think in community services particularly, you're going to be working with people from a whole range of different backgrounds who've been brought up differently with different values and beliefs to yourself. And you've got to remain true to you and yourself and your values and beliefs, but you're going to be challenged by some of their values and beliefs. It's really important to be aware of how mainstream media and other media might shape your own values and beliefs, how family might, how school might, popular media, music, movies, politics. Yeah.
We've got our leaders telling us stuff.
So being aware of how that all makes you, but...
so you'll develop your own view of the world.
Your own view of the world.
Yeah. Not that it's not a wrong view of the world. But I guess be mindful that there are influences that create that, what we see as perhaps more correct view of the world.
That's right. Be aware that we're told a certain correct view, but your view is not right or wrong. But what is wrong is for you to go and impose your view of the world onto those people that you're supporting.
Yeah, because they'll have their own stories.
They'll have their own stories.
And their own influences, perhaps. And there
Their
might
own
be subtle
influences.
differences within family or even socioeconomics, perhaps, or other subtleties, or coming from another country or culture that's very different. So they'll have their own view of the world. So by us imposing one view, this view is the correct view and the only view, that's where we'll...
Got to be careful.
That's where we'll get in trouble.
That's where we've got to be really mindful of our own worldview. But you've got to be aware of that. You don't want your own values and beliefs to get in the way of you putting them upon someone else because you know what's right for them or what you think is right for them. And it's that's so important. So you've got to know when to just park your own values and beliefs. You can never deny them because they're who you are.
Yeah. But being aware of them.
Being aware of them
so
is the key.
Perhaps manage them.
So you can manage them. Yeah, that's the key.
It's complicated in some levels. So I'm just thinking back again to those 70s and 80s and the ads, and everyone's in a bikini to sell soft drink and have a good time. And
weird concept. Like, it is complicated. It looks simple, but it's...
Yeah. But then what if back in the 70s and 80s, if a young woman, a teenage girl, was to become pregnant, and there were all this sex sell stuff's everywhere, but if someone became pregnant at a young age, then they're on the outer in a sense. It's not just, there definitely wasn't services back then. There's a few more now, but I guess the stigma.
There'd be a lot of stigma around a young parent. Is that still true today?
Yeah.
I don't know, but certainly back then, yeah, absolutely. And
yeah. So I guess for me, the groups that we're working with, if there's a stigma attached, is that part of that? They're not part of the mainstream or the majority,
broader community. They're somehow
So
on
the
the
groups you
outer.
work with, if you can attach a stigma or a stereotype, that otherness, not part of that bigger, the dominant way of thinking, perhaps.
That's right, and that's really important. I don't spend a lot of time on Instagram or other social media platforms, and I can't name them. Two old blokes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know whether there's still that very narrow image that's presented on those platforms. Because they, to me, if you're thinking in terms of your assessment, the broader community, to me, Instagram and all those platforms, they're mainstream media. They're broader community. A lot of people, that's how they're sharing and getting their views of the world and their stories of the world. They are mainstream. I'd say more people than not probably engage in social media. It'd be probably true that younger people are more engaged with it than people of our fine vintage, but I know there are still a lot of people who really embrace it.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to think, well, what's broader community mean? Maybe check out the kind of stories and the images that are sitting on Instagram and social media, because that to me is probably pretty main view.
Yeah. We could go on, but we probably
could go on. But this view of the lake, I reckon any fish out there?
I reckon there's a lot more now.
A lot more now. People aren't allowed on the lake now.
No more net fishing, like in the big, commercial fishing.
Okay.
Yeah. But, any questions, you can get back to us, but hopefully that was somewhat useful. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Good to bump into you down here on the lake.
Have a solo.
Solo, light on the fizz so you can slam it down fast. You face the challenge.
Oh, stop there. Turtle Pips.
I like that one.
Yeah.
When things are kinda lazy, you can make them crazy, baby, move it. Feel a little rave, simply name your flavor, baby, move it. Chocolate move, strawberry move, iced coffee move, banana move, move it, baby, move your body to it, move it, baby, prove that you can do it, move it, baby, keep it moving on in, move it, baby, move it, move it, baby, move your body to it, move it, baby, move it, move it, baby, move it, baby, move it.
Go for it. A full cert 3, just like the song says. Take it away.
Okay, go for it. Come on, go.
You've run a mile or 3, you want a cold KB, but the coach has other ideas.
Up and back. We'll do it again.
But it's all worthwhile when in just a while you've got to show your style. Go for it.
Go for it, go for it. You gotta go, go, go for it, go for it. Go for it, go for it. You showed them how, now go for it, go for it.
Full blown cert 3.